What's up, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the book The Man Who Solved the Market by Gregory Zuckerman. Gregory Zuckerman has written other books about oil fracking and also about the financial crisis. And I want to read this book because I read about the company Renaissance Technologies in Life After Google, where George Gilder discusses Renaissance Technologies and how their algorithmic trading and how Robert Mercer in Renaissance Technology came up with an investment strategy that doesn't really contribute anything to the economy. And he made it seem like Robert Mercer was like at the head of Renaissance Technologies, but it's really Jim Simons that founded it and built it up. And that's what this book is about, is Renaissance Technologies and Jim Simons. And the subtitle is Jim Simons, the person that founded Renaissance Technologies. And this book might not be like self-help, but I thought we could take a look at it because I'm into financial independence in the stock market. So, and the story here is very unique. So there's things that you can definitely take away from this book. So I thought this book was going to be more about like Jim Simons and Robert Mercer and like how they found each other. But it was more of like Jim Simons from beginning to end and like every little story from like when he was in college onwards. And the first part of this book is like really tedious. It talks about like, obviously Jim Simons was fascinated by math, and it talks about his whole math journey. He was into geometry, and he was like very good at geometry, and he could have been a professor. He was a professor, but he could have been that for like the rest of his life. But he got caught up in these other things. Like he got caught up in gambling. He didn't get caught up in it. He enjoyed gambling, and from that he enjoyed money, and from that he wanted to find a way to solve the markets. And there's a lot of people that are in quant trading that are the same way, and they all kind of go the same path. Like you're very smart and you want to use that smarts to make money, naturally turn to gambling. Gambling is hard to like be really good at because there's casinos and things like that, where the market, you can just flood the market with money and not many people will bat an eye at it. So it's way bigger scale than just gambling. And like in this whole gambling part in the beginning of the book, where they talk a little bit about gambling, they talk about Edward Thorp, who's like also one of the first quant traders, and like how that influences a lot of the quant traders, because he was a mathematician as well. And they also talk briefly about Claude Shannon and information theory. And Claude Shannon is kind of central to George Gilder's theories of the world about information theory and like entropy, and how entropy changes the world. It's entropic events that change the world. It's not like government funding, and it's not government regulation. It's people that have startups that have massive ideas. And I agree with that. And I think Jim Simons can be viewed in that context a little bit, because he came up with like a new concept of like that the market could be solved, and he worked tediously to do that. And that's what this book highlights. It highlights like how long of a journey. And even this book, even though this book can be boring when it talks about like every single person in his life, eventually it shows you like how determined he was, because as you make it through the all these characters in his life, you realize like he didn't stop believing that he could solve the market. And like sometimes this book will like develop a character for chapters on end, and then that person will just leave. And that's like something I didn't like about the book, was like you just invest in all like learning about these tons of characters in the beginning of the book, and by the end there's only like a couple left. The book also provides like a ton of information about like their strategies. It doesn't give you specific strategies, but it gives you like the things that they used in like their data modeling and their data science. And if you've done anything in the data world, then like some of it'll be familiar. They use stochastic models, linear regression models, kernel models, Gann analysis, which is like a type of technical analysis. They used pairs trading when they were doing their trades, and like that's how they first got started in equity investing. So there's like a lot of that information in this book as well. And it provides you like a lot of other quant firms too, in case you want to look into those, like D. Shaw. But I think it's very interesting. Like it provides good information if you want to like look into this or look into a career in quant trading or algorithmic trading. And there's like resources on the web. Like I found some trainings on Lynda if you wanted to like learn the basics of algorithmic trading and like the programming you need to learn. But this book is like pretty cool with all the information it has. And it really highlights the importance of like learning math and coding, and like how powerful it can be if you learn those two things and like take them to their fullest. And the book has like a little bit of drama in it. Like there's some traders that try and steal Jim Simon's information, but he ends up suing them and get a little bit of money. But like these guys are really intuitive, because if you read book about like the financial markets, people always do something well and then they steal their ideas or take advantage of it. And that happened to them when they were trading commodities. But then they saw what people were doing and they like came up with strategies to like overcome that and to like send fake signals. And like same things with when they were algorithmic trading, they had to do the same thing. Jim Simon started this like in the 70s. So to think that from that point on that he like came up with this idea, they didn't even have the computing power that they have today. These guys are probably consuming tons of data and just combing through that today. But to start in the 70s with all that is like truly powerful. And like one of the biggest lessons to me from this book is like, don't give up on your dream, especially if you like believe in it. Because Jim Simon's from like day one when he started this, like believed that he was going to find a way to solve the markets. And like so many people along the way discouraged him and told him like to give up, and he never did. Like his firm did really well in commodities. There's a big part about the book about that. They were very successful in commodities, but then they wanted to get into stocks and they just couldn't figure it out. And it ended up like being like a couple lines of code that screwed them up. But it wasn't just Jim Simons doing that. It was his belief in his team, and he hired the smartest people. And I felt like that's something the book could have done a little better job of, is like highlighting the management principles that kept these people together. People came in and out, but like Jim Simons, Robert Mercer, and the central management team were like stayed together, or like were able to build this together. And like how they successfully did that without major flaws and all that, without huge kinks and without splitting apart and destroying everything, like so many stories we see in the media. Like it would have been good to get more information about that, because the book kind of makes everybody seem quirky and then it was just happenstance that they all stuck together. But I think there's something more about that there. But this book really highlights how if you stick to your purpose of something you believe in and you just work on it every day, you can really achieve it. And especially if you build a really strong team and you keep that team together and like you use people to build a common good, then you can really build something great. And another thing I learned is that Renaissance Technologies, the best fund is really one just like only for employees. And I think that's very unique because it keeps their size to a limited amount and it allows them to be like a little bit more nimble in the markets, where most funds get really, really big and you end up having losses because there's just too much capital for them to manage. And then like the whole end of the book is about Robert Mercer and his involvement in like the Trump campaign and like how he owned part of Breitbart and Cambridge Analytica. And it really doesn't get too much into the specifics of like the data used by like Cambridge Analytica, but it seemed like maybe Robert Mercer might have helped out a little bit. But it doesn't really talk about that in this book. But like if these guys solve the market with like all these algorithms, I can only imagine if they deployed that for like political or social media purposes, like it would be insane. But I mean, who knows, maybe they'll do that in future elections. So it's like these guys to me are like some of the smartest people on the planet. They're focused on the equity markets, but like they could really use like their data background and their math backgrounds to like solve a lot more problems. And I guess that's George Gilder's point in Life After Google, is like these guys are some of the smartest people on the planet, and like they could probably use their brains to help more people. But I mean, I think they're already helping a lot of people. They give a lot of money away to charity. At the end of the day, like the core thing I liked about this book was that I was really amazed by Jim Simon's dedication to trying to solve the markets. Like that was his number one purpose. And there's like a million times he could have given up, like in the multiple crashes that happened in the market, 1987, the dot-com crash, the financial crisis. Like he could have given up, but he just kept going, and he's basically built the best performing hedge fund / quant fund there is. So if you're interested in like financial markets or data science or algorithms, then I really recommend this book. There's a lot of good information in here. The beginning of the book can be very tedious, but I think it's worth it. So to get my book reviews and self-help advice, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel.